This is Devin, and he's got a huge problem. See, Devin's an IT engineer at Bain Street, a famous hedge fund. Life's good, fixing bugs, clearing tickets, and keeping the company's infrastructure running. He's got a reputation for solving problems fast and knows PowerShell like the back of his hand. But one day, he gets a call from up high. Devin's used to rescuing sales floor monkeys from terminal meltdowns, but a call from the CTO? That's either a disaster, a pink slip, or, worst of all, both. Devin picks up. His heart sinks to his bowels. It's even worse. Microsoft's ending support for Windows 10, the operating system that more than half the company's 1,000-monkey workforce uses every day. And Devin knows a lot of their ancient hardware doesn't stand a chance of running Windows 11. Hell, some of those machines struggle to load 5 Chrome tabs at once. But there's no choice. Legal's breathing down his neck. The whole company must upgrade to stay compliant. Outdated software is a hacker's wet dream, and nobody wants to be the next Discord. So, with no time to lose, Devin and his boss scramble, buying new systems, updating what they can, and porting hundreds of thousands of documents onto newer devices and drives for safekeeping. It's a race against time that costs the company tens of thousands of bananas. But here's the thing, Devin's not alone. Across the jungle, from tiny startups to sprawling megacores, millions of IT monkeys are getting the same call, facing the same impossible reality. From a humble convenience store tracking purchases in Excel, to a Fortune 500 megacorp prepping a shareholder deck in PowerPoint, everyone depends on Microsoft, the developers of the Windows operating system. In other words, if you're not running Windows, you're running into problems. But how did we get here? How did Microsoft become so influential? And more importantly, should any one company have this kind of power in the first place? This is the sunsetting of Windows 10 explained. The story starts in the mid-1970s, with a young monkey named Bill and his friend Paul founding Microsoft in a tiny garage. Their big break came when they licensed an operating system to IBM, and soon, their tech became the standard for practically every computer everywhere. See, Bill here, he's a Harvard dropout with a knack for both business and code, and used these gifts to steer Microsoft from scrappy upstart to tech titan. Not without their fair share of drama and controversy, mind you. Let me know if you want a video on that, by the way. Thanks to Bill and Paul's skills, by the time the 1990s rolled around, Windows was everywhere, and Microsoft's grip on the world's desktops was nearly absolute. And over the past few decades, Windows has maintained its dominance as the undisputed alpha of operating systems. Even today, over 70% of desktop computers worldwide still run at least some version of Windows, with Windows 10 alone powering hundreds of millions of machines in offices, schools, hospitals, and government agencies. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. In the business world, the numbers are even more staggering. 9 out of 10 Fortune 500 companies rely on Windows to keep their operations running. From spreadsheets to servers, presentations to payroll, Windows is the invisible backbone of the modern workplace. But with that dominance also comes massive vulnerability. Because when Windows stumbles, the entire jungle feels it. Just look at what happened in July 2024, when a global tech outage linked to a faulty Windows update wreaked havoc across countless industries. The worst of it? Airports ground to a halt, flights delayed or canceled, and thousands of monkeys stranded, all because critical systems running on Windows went down. And it didn't end there. Hospitals postponed surgeries, banks froze transactions, and businesses lost millions in a matter of hours. It's a grim reminder. When a single company's software is required for so much of daily life, even a single botched update can ripple out and disrupt the lives of millions. Some particularly critical monkeys have even gone so far as to call Microsoft anti-consumer and monopolistic in their practices. And with how things are going, it's not hard to see why more and more are starting to think that way. And with their recent decision to deprecate Windows 10, it's going to happen all over again. But this time, it looks like the cards were deliberately stacked in the corpo monkey's favor. But what does all this mean for average monkeys like you and me? Other than needing a couple of software updates or upgrading ancient tech to meet modern requirements, it can't be that bad, right? Spoiler, it can. And the worst part is that it's already happening. See, for Devin and millions of IT staff like him, the clock is ticking. With Windows 10 support ending, every machine that uses the now outdated OS becomes a sitting duck for hackers, malware, and a Pandora's box of compliance nightmares. Companies scramble to update hundreds of thousands of computers, an already massive and costly undertaking. But their nightmare doesn't end there. Most older hardware can't handle Windows 11's hefty requirements. But while all this is happening in the background, remember that the sunsetting means perfectly good devices, some barely a few years old, are headed straight for the nearest landfill. Microsoft really is out here doing everything they can to go from global warming to global heating, huh? That's literal mountains of plastic, metal, and toxic components, all because of a single software giant's decision. Really makes you feel like the whole sustainability facade Microsoft puts up is little more than an act, huh? But don't worry, we'll get to that, believe me. But it's not just the environment that pays the price. The scramble to upgrade could also mean rushed data transfers, lost files, and panicked employees. Small businesses and schools, already running on tight budgets, especially in this abysmal economy, are hit the hardest. Not many have the margins or bananas on hand to afford the new hardware, so they risk running unsupported systems, putting their data and their customers and employees in danger. With no other choice, a lot of monkeys turn to big tech's cloud storage, like Microsoft's own OneDrive, hoping for a quick fix. But here's where things get a little, say, Black Mirror. See, when monkeys upload their files to these platforms, they're not just laying there untouched. Hell, Microsoft's own privacy policy says they can access, disclose, and preserve personal data, including your files, if they think it's necessary. And for anyone who cares about privacy, that's a jungle-sized red flag. Monkey doesn't know about you, but I do not like megacorporations being able to spy on me just for uploading my portfolio onto OneDrive as a backup. We need an alternative, one that puts our privacy first. The team has been using Proton Drive because it offers end-to-end encryption, meaning only you and monkeys that you deem trustworthy can access your files. And it's not just your file contents. Proton Drive also encrypts metadata like file names, folder names, previews, so your files are well and truly your own. All this protection also comes in an easy-to-use package, functioning exactly like our favorite productivity tools like Google Docs. And look, here's our team reviewing our next video right now, just without the risk of Google flagging it and reporting us to Uncle Don. Plus, using Proton Drive means no data brokers, advertisers, or megacores can use, sell, or train AI using your data. So whether you're a business migrating sensitive documents, or just a monkey looking to keep their personal files away from prying corpo monkeys, Proton Drive has your back. And hey, they're kind enough to sponsor this video, so you know for a fact they take privacy seriously. If you want cloud storage that actually gives a damn about your right to privacy, go check them out at proton.me/drive/monkey explains for a massive 60% discount on the house. Thank you, Proton, for sponsoring this video. Regardless, it's clear that this is not just a harmless software update. Microsoft will tell you it's all about security and innovation, but somehow their idea of progress always seems to result in monkeys buying new stuff and making them more bananas. Funny how that works. Their decisions always seem to benefit the company handsomely, while users and organizations are left to shoulder the costs and consequences. And yet, as the world grapples with the fallout, mountains of discarded hardware, lost data, and strained budgets, Microsoft is quick to assure us of their commitment to sustainability. Their marketing spin and branding is filled with promises of a greener future, carbon-neutral goals, and responsible innovation. But how do these claims stack up against the metric tons of e-waste generated by a single software decision? Let's take a closer look at just how green these windows really are. See, Devin and his team are still dealing with the mess. Like millions of IT workers around the world, he's suddenly scrambling to find space in the office to house, or just dispose of, old hardware that can't run Windows 11. Picture storage rooms filling up with pallets of laptops, desktops, and all-in-ones, machines that are still perfectly functional, now rendered obsolete by a software deadline. This exact scenario is happening right now and could impact up to 240 million devices worldwide. But the worst has yet to come. Most of these devices won't get a second life. They'll end up as e-waste. And e-waste isn't like ordinary trash. As it breaks down, it releases a toxic cocktail of heavy metals and plastics that leach into soil and water, harming communities and ecosystems. All this is happening while the company responsible for the fallout is busy putting out press releases, market reports, and sustainability speeches. Hell, if you believed Microsoft's press releases, you'd think they were single-handedly saving the jungle. The corpo monkeys tout milestones like contracting 34 gigawatts of carbon-free electricity, diverting 88% of operational waste, and allegedly protecting more land than they use. But peer behind the vines, and the reality in landfills, e-waste facilities, and mountains of unused hardware staring Devin in the face tells a different story. Where were all the sustainability advocates at Microsoft when this decision was pushed through? Even Microsoft knows that their efforts don't represent the reality of the situation, because their own reports admit that greenhouse gas emissions have actually increased over the last couple of years thanks to AI, cloud infrastructure, and data centers. And while Microsoft touts its zero waste and carbon negative by 2030 ambitions, the forced obsolescence of Windows 10 is sending mountains of perfectly good devices to the dump, generating e-waste on a scale that no recycling program can realistically offset. The disconnect between the marketing and the reality is hard to ignore. But the problem is that there's practically no mainstream alternative, and that's by design. Remember that Microsoft has built and defended, very controversially, a near monopoly in the operating system market. From the earliest days of Windows, they've made sure that, for most monkeys and businesses, using a computer means using Windows. The result? When Microsoft makes a decision, the world has little choice but to bend the knee, no matter the cost. Sure, alternatives exist, Linux, macOS, but they're a drop in the ocean compared to the devices running Microsoft-owned systems. And switching isn't just a costly hassle, it's a logistical and financial nightmare. Imagine having to migrate hundreds of thousands of workers from using Windows to Mac. Businesses everywhere would grind to a halt for days or weeks almost. But make no mistake, Microsoft knows their dominance, and this decision to forcibly outmode hundreds of millions of devices only confirms it. They count on it to stay as the alpha, all while the company continues to tout its green credentials and innovation. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Look, there are many, many other shady decisions surrounding the company, but what I'm about to share should tell you all you need to know about their priorities. In 2025, the CEO of Microsoft was graciously granted a massive pay bump to almost 100 million bananas, all while laying off thousands of workers, overseeing one of the world's worst tech outages, and dealing irreparable damage to the environment while sunsetting Windows 10. To them, all this chaos is just noise. Doesn't matter if shareholder value goes up, right? And that's the final piece of the puzzle. As we like to say on the channel, always follow the bananas. Despite the marketing spin, the environmental damage, the logistical nightmare of upgrading millions of devices, always remember who's making a killing from the fallout. The one selling the devices, the OS keys, the Office packages. But thankfully, it seems like jungles around the world are noticing this disturbing trend and are starting to take action. In recent years, governments and regulators have started to push back against the unchecked power of tech giants like Microsoft. The European bears, for example, have ramped up antitrust investigations and passed landmark legislation like the Digital Markets Act, aiming to rein in monopolistic practices. In the US jungle, Congress monkeys are finally waking up to the risks of corporate consolidation, with renewed calls for antitrust enforcement and even talk of breaking up big tech. Some jungles are going further, exploring requirements for longer software support life cycles, right to repair laws, and stricter e-waste regulations. The message is clear. The days of tech giants being given a blank check are coming to an end. Of course, these changes won't happen overnight. But the tide is turning. The more we shine a light on these issues, the environmental fallout, the forced obsolescence, the lack of real alternatives and accountability, the harder it becomes for even the most dominant alpha to ignore. If any monkeys are confused, just remember that this is a simple explainer covering the sunsetting of Windows 10 and the, let's say, interesting practices of the company behind it all. Please do not sue Monkey, and many thanks to the Banana Republic for generously bankrolling and funding these videos. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next video.